The UNC Pembroke wrestling team finished the season tied for 20th place at the NCAA Championships. Junior Blaze Shade claimed second place in the 174-pound tournament, earning All-American honors in the process. Shade finishes the season with a 42-5 record. The 42 victories ranks fourth all-time in program history and is the most for any Brave since 1985. UNCP softball played 4 doubleheaders last week, including 3 against Peach Belt Conference opponents, and they were consistent in splitting all 4 twin bills. The highlights included a win over number 17 Catawba, a walk-off home run to win a game against Francis Marion, and an 11-0 run rule victory against Georgia Southwestern. The Braves are on the road again this weekend before returning home to face Limestone on March 24th. On the baseball diamond, the Braves bounced back from an 11-3 loss to Wingate to win their next 2 games. However, the last 2 games at North Georgia went to the Nighthawks, as UNCP fell to 4-5 in PBC action. The Braves are back in Pembroke this weekend for a 3-game set against conference foe Georgia Southwestern. The Black and Gold Report starts now. Welcome to another episode of the Black and Gold Report presented by Pepsi, a show all about UNC Pembroke athletics. I'm Cameron Songer, and on this week's show, we talk to UNCP track and field head coach Peter Ormsby about the completed indoor season and early results in the outdoor season. We'll also check in with UNCP softball head coach Brittany Bennett, whose team is about halfway done with their season. But first, it's my pleasure to be joined by Dr. Peter Ormsby.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get right to it. Before we get to talking about your outdoor season, let's recap the indoor portion of the 2016 schedule. It was the first official season of indoor track and field at UNC Pembroke. Let's hand out report cards on the indoor schedule, starting with the men.
With the men, C plus B minus. I think we weren't really at full strength, and I think once both teams realized that the importance of an indoor season and we get more kids going, because we did hold out about 6 kids indoors to get them ready for outdoors, but B plus, B minus at the worst, and I think we're going forward from that. On the women's side, probably like a B plus, A minus. I think we had some kids we had 8 school records be broke, so that's always a good thing to have. And we had, I think, Gina Cube made a provisional mark for the HEP. So highlights here and there, nothing really spectacular, but like I said, it's once everybody realizes that, the effort's there, it sets them up for a good outdoor season.
Well, we discussed this the last time you were on the show, but the women stole most of the headlines during the indoor portion of your schedule by breaking those 8 school records. You had to be particularly pleased with the way your women's team performed in January and February.
It's good. I think based on the early results for outdoor with the conference, I looked at them this morning, there's still a lot of work to do. So obviously the early marks from some of the Florida schools, because they've got better weather to train in, but they don't do indoors. So from a standpoint from that way, we've got a few more races underneath our belts, and we just need to get consistent with races.
The Braves opened up the outdoor schedule back on March 4th with the inaugural Braves Classic at the Dick and Lenore Taylor track. 6 teams competed in the event, including the Braves, and it was the first home meet for UNCP in 8 years. How'd you feel it went?
It's over. So it was very exciting. We had a lot of alumni come back that I think were more excited than some of the kids. To host a meet in nearly a decade and to have a new pole vault pit, new hurdles, a lot of new stuff, just completes the facility to where everybody's taken a lot more pride in the facility. And I think once they realize that it hasn't sunk in that we're hosting conference yet, but it was really exciting to see just the crowd emerge as classes got done on Friday afternoon. So by the time we got to the end of the meet, there was people almost all the way around the track. And the stands had started to fill up, but nothing to where we expect them to be at the Peach Belt in a month.
Yeah, you talked about the Peach Belt a little bit. That'll be the other home event you'll host this year. The Peach Belt Conference Track and Field Championships will be held April 21st through the 23rd in Pembroke. Logistically, what kind of things did you identify from hosting the first meet back on March 4th that you'd like to fix or improve upon heading into that big conference meet?
Nothing really needs to be fixed from our standpoint. We'll have a lot more officials and that capacity type people to where we're not getting volunteers or coaches don't have to run the events. So from that standpoint, we should be able to coach our athletes at that point and let the certified officials, mark and do everything else. There's just some very small logistical things to make it more team friendly, but we set up the home meet to be run just like the Peach Belt Conference Championship. So if we need to change anything, but right now we're very happy with the facility and everything else going into it.
The PBC Championship will bring at least 9 other teams to Pembroke, and I would guess somewhere around 250 athletes in total will be present at the opening ceremonies. What is the excitement level like with an event like that, and do you get the sense your athletes are really looking forward to playing the host role?
We could probably almost double that number. I think most schools are going to bring about 50 kids and 25 on each side, so you're looking at 450 to 500. And with us being very fan-friendly, I would expect that the whole home stands are going to be full with spectators. But I think once we get closer, I think we're about 6 weeks out or 5 weeks out from the conference championship. As we get closer, as the races wind down, especially coming off of spring break, we're racing pretty much every weekend from here to conference. So it's going to catch up to them really quick if they're not already excited.
What does it add potentially to have the home stands, the home fans really cheering on the black and gold?
It's a double-edged sword. One, there's a lot of pressure because you are competing on your home turf. It is your home facility. You've got family, friends, your peers from class and everything else. So it adds a little bit more pressure. But the nice thing is they get to sleep in their own beds. They get to eat the meals where they're comfortable eating. So it's one, it's good, one, it's bad. But I think we're going to relish the fact that we're hosting this year and see what happens.
All right, Coach, it's time for us to take our first break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the Black and Gold Report. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Report. Cameron Songer here with UNCP track and field head coach Dr. Peter Ormsby. Coach, thanks for sitting down with us.
No problem.
Let's switch gears now and talk about your outdoor schedule from a competitive standpoint. UNCP returns 11 athletes with all conference awards from last year's experience, including 7 on the men's side. The men grabbed a 3rd place finish at last year's PBC Championships in Montevallo, Alabama. Talk about what you have returning and what you expect from the men at this year's PBC event.
We return a lot of what we had last year. I think the big loss last year was graduating Shaq Ray. This year we brought in about a dozen guys, some that we expect to have impacts, whether it's all conference nods or just squeaking in for some points. That's going to be the key is getting as many kids that we do have qualified already in positions to score at conference, be all conference, and be able to double back or triple back for some of them. The sprinters and the jumpers are the ones that we expect to get the most points from. I think last year's group on both sides scored about half or 3/4 of the points between the sprinters, jumpers. Throwers contributed a lot too. The distance athletes really can't double and triple like a sprinter. So, from a distance standpoint, a kid coming back from the 10 may score in the 5. But the Peach Belt is a very middle distance heavy conference. So we get what we can in those events and really rely on the sprinters and jumpers.
Now looking at the women's side, the list of returning veterans on that side is headlined by senior sprinter Johnny Perez, but you do bring back a couple phenomenal throwers in Janelle Brown and Anya Day. The women finished 3rd at the PBC Championships as well. What are you expecting from them this season?
Hopefully to pick up where they left off. Right now the PBC performance list, Anya and Janelle are on the top of the list for the multiple events they are doing. Gina Cube, who I mentioned earlier, we're expecting her, hopefully, knock on wood, to repeat as conference HEP champion, and she was phenomenal in a couple other individual events she did. So, to hopefully maintain the points we were getting for those individuals and for the freshmen to kind of do what the guys are doing is just step up where needed and squeak by with some points and make some noise where we can.
Let's talk about the strength of the conference this year. Associate PBC members Nova Southeastern and Shorter finished 1 and 2 on both the men's and women's sides last year, and by early results look to have pretty solid teams this year as well. Are they the teams to beat again this year, and where do you feel your team stacks up among the 10 teams that will compete at the PBC Championships?
Definitely, you can't mention a PBC championship without those 2 teams in there. Right now, if I had to say, we're probably like a 4th, 5th place team right now based on the early results. My assistant coach had to talk me off a cliff after the home meet. It is very early for us. Holding out as many kids we did indoors and not getting those kids the reps that they do need I think we're going to move up the rankings, up the boards, but you know, GRU's got a pretty deep team. Montevalo's got a deep team where they need them. So it's anybody's game when it comes to that, and obviously everybody's going to be amped up and geeked up, ready to go for conference.
Well, looking now at some of the positive results so far, UNCP grabbed titles in 14 events at the Braves Classic earlier this month, including 2 event championships by Corey Jones, who also tallied an NCAA provisional qualifying mark in the high jump. 19 athletes have already qualified to compete in next month's PBC championships. Were you satisfied with your team's performance at the Braves Classic?
I think obviously we could have performed just a little bit better. You know, we were probably one of 2 full strength teams at the meet. So really, it's nice to have those kids get the home wins on the home field and get the dubs, as they call them, I guess. But no, I think we'd like to double that number for qualifiers for PBCs, especially, you know, the more people we can get qualified for the home meet in a month, the better, because, you know, it's not costing us any more money to travel them when they just have to leave the dorms. But no, 2 to 3 times more qualifiers, and obviously we're looking for quality marks. But just to have an individual qualify it speaks volumes for their capabilities.
Looking now a little bit more at the short term, UNCP will head to Chapel Hill for the Dennis Craddock Carolina Relays this weekend. What are you hoping to see from your athletes at that, and then also for the next couple of weeks?
I think the next couple of weeks it speaks volumes. You know, going into up to UNC this weekend, really we're just trying to, you know, dust the rust again from spring break to see what they did or didn't do over break. But we go from Carolina to NC State to High Point. The distance group goes up to William and Mary. So over the next 3 to 5 weeks, there's a lot of things that need to happen, but we're also setting the kids up to be at those quality meets. So if something's going to happen, they're going to be done at quality meets anyway.
Dr. Peter Ormsby, thanks for joining us. It's time for us to take another break. We'll be right back on the Black and Gold Report.